Welcome back to week 2 of Yet to Be Named, the gold pre-show that is officially named Yet to Be Named. Yes. So, with that, we are going to get into this real quick here. We're going to be getting into our Division 2 power rankings. So we've got in this division, Literal Monkeys is in this division, Killer Whales, Nameless Predators, New Wave Esports, Imperial Gaming Paradox, Ugly Gang, Hyperion Gaming, I think they're Origin now. I think that's the name of this team. The Comfy Cartel.
Did we lose your image, by the way?
Did you lose my image? What did I do?
It's frozen.
You're frozen like half turns to your other
Yeah,
monitor.
you're like...
Oh,
you're like
excellent. It'll be a static image, and we'll see if it catches up. Excellent. So we've
Right.
got in this
Excellent.
because if
Wonderful.
I try to fix it, it breaks the stream. Killer Whales.
Oh boy.
One monitor life. Alrighty. So 10th place. Ugly Gang. I think we had... Who did we have 10th place last week? I think they're Origin now.
Last week.
Wasn't
I
it
didn't
Ugly
have
Gang?
it saved.
It
I
was
believe it
Ugly
was
Gang.
Ugly Gang.
Ugly Gang. Did you lose my image? Has
What did I
Ugly
do?
Gang
It's
moved
frozen.
beyond?
Yeah, you're frozen like half turns to your
Yeah, you're like...
Oh,
you're like that.
excellent. It'll be a static
I don't
image.
think
See if it
there's
catches
any
on.
reason to
Excellent.
move them
Okay.
up or down.
Excellent. Because
Because
if I go
they-
down, it breaks the stream.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but I don't think there's like any reason to really move them because they didn't really show anything more interesting in their second loss. Like they didn't like show any like remarkable improvement or I guess like anything like that. So it's hard for me to want to move them.
I agree. I will give them credit here, though. I played them last week. I'm not gonna lie. We fully expected to do very well into that team. However, their early game actually surprised us. They punished us a little bit for thinking that this would be a complete walk in the park. I got first blooded one game trying to dive a set under tower at level like 2. So at least they had the initiative to be like, you know what, don't let these guys completely walk all over us. So
I think that's
Also,
one of
I'll
I'll
the
give them that, but I don't know if it was enough to show movement. I will say that. Plus they played Monkeys and then Whales. I think 2 teams who look really good, and they kind of got beat just as bad both times.
makes perfect sense. So we had in this general vicinity, if I'm remembering correctly, we had Goon Squad Gaming Gamma. But
Yeah. Game Squad Gaming was 8th and Predators were 9th.
I gotcha. Yeah. Do we see
And-
any change there?
I don't think so. Like
I agree again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that these teams like know what they need to do to win, but they can't execute for like whatever reason. Like for Predators, I can just say from having talked to them that it's like there's like a mid-jungle disconnect, and they're working on fixing it, but whether or not they can fix it in 1 week, we're gonna have to see. But
Right. I know from being a little around the Goon Squad Gamma situation, they're struggling to have a stability in the top lane and stability in the roster. So it's like, it's one of those things that for some of these teams that came together at the very end, right before signups happened, it's to be a bit of expected that they're struggling in some areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took the words out of my mouth.
I know that's not a lot to say. We're trying to get through power rankings a little faster and do a much better job of hyping up today's matchups today. This was the big messy pile, if I'm remembering right.
Yes,
The
both
big
divisions. The middle is a
messy-
bit messy.
The big
Middle's a bit
messy pile. I know that there
Yeah.
were a lot of interesting results last week.
yeah.
So,
I-
where do we go? Do we have anybody that we really feel strongly about is going to be 6 or 7?
I think
Do we happen to have what we had last week?
I'm sure
From
we
like
do.
7 to 5?
I should have.
I
should
can
have
pull it up.
written it.
You can pull it up,
down
thank you, man.
Rather than.
I should have as well, I'm sorry.
I just
My bad.
opened up the link and hit the reset button. I should
Yeah.
have screenshot
I
it.
saved what I had and then it changed it from week to week, but I didn't.
Right. Yeah, this is super rushed.
I do know that I have at least movement in something, and I think 7 and 6 what I ended up having is what we had. I think we had 7 Comfy and 6 New Wave.
I think that's what we had with Hyperion and BDE, right up BDE 4, Hyperion 5.
Okay. Yeah, I personally don't have movement there for 5, but and I know Feathers hopped onto the call.
Yeah.
I heard the ding noise this time. I know you're gonna argue with me. Maybe I have a feeling that your team should be lower, even though it is your team. I actually, after last week, I did flip those.
See,
mhm.
It went Comfy 7th, New Wave 6th, and Hyperion 5th. And
Yeah.
I think flipping Comfy and New Wave is actually correct.
So we put Comfy in 7 or Comfy
Comfy
6?
6th.
Comfy 6 now. I think last week it was
Okay,
7.
and then
I
New
think
Wave 7. Okay.
Yeah, I know that New Wave is having roster movements. I don't know if that's public information yet. I know that there's some role swaps, some people coming in, some people coming out. So then again, this, maybe basing it off of last week isn't entirely going to be accurate. It's going to be a new team for sure this week, but I think after seeing the way those two teams played last week, I felt a little comfortable saying I think Comfy in its current state is a little more cohesive.
Which is interesting, given that today is 0 ABJ. So,
Yes, 0 ABJ.
Oh yeah, this.
Again, when it comes to New Wave, I appreciate the fact that New Wave is there's an argument to be made about stability and kind of like trying to see a roster for a month, understanding it, or alternatively going, okay, we're starting to see a trend here, we're starting to see a pattern here. It's time to make a small change to kind of see what's happening. It's going to be difficult. For me, for sure, the game for me is kind of New Wave versus BDE. Because if it starts to get to 0 and 3 for New Wave, we're now talking about a very, very real reality of the gauntlet for them. And that is definitely something I would argue that this team did not believe was going to be the case coming in. So.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil my game yet until we get after these, but.
Okay. So
My game to watch.
are we keeping Hyperion and BDE in the same positions?
I don't see why not, personally. I think Hyperion, they had a new top play last week, right? DeQual, I think his name is.
Yep.
I think it was a 2-0, if I'm not mistaken.
It was.
They looked. I know that there was talk about. I don't know if it was specifically on ZGG media or if it was through other esport media. Whether or not this team is going to boom or bounce back. And I think they're bouncing back really nicely. I think they should maintain that 5 spot. I think they haven't shown us why they hit 4 yet, or they should hit 4 if they're going to. But I don't think this team is. I think this team is definitely stronger than every team below it. I think they showed great improvement. They bounced back from a bit of a tough loss on stream, and I think there's no reason to drop them anywhere.
It's one of those things that Hyperion has gotten better about over time, but it has been they are a organization that is known, especially early on in seasons, for tremendous instability and really rapid and quick changes. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a mental boom from the organization. It's just one where, like, for whatever reason, their team building process leads to a lot of putting out fires before they get to stability. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't.
Understood,
It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, I will say, I like my team's played both of them, right? Predators. I'm part of the nameless organization. People that didn't know. And they said versus Hyperion, they felt like they could have won, but they just made like some crucial mistakes that they could have fixed. Whereas versus BDE, they felt like there was never a chance they were going to win. They were always going to lose those games.
It's really interesting you say that, given what you look at some things where you look at the bot lane from BDE, and you're dealing with silver players, right? Like, it's just interesting that's said when you look at one of these rosters and you can identify more clear player deficiencies. I will be right back.
Power of James Moriarty.
My one question off of this, just in regards to your scrims, was Kappa playing for Hyperion, or was it Duclaw?
My game against Hyperion was week 1, and it was Kappa. That's when he stomped Yadin in that Trundle v Wukong lane.
Yeah.
And then struggled the second game a little bit into Malphite. But my experience against him is Kappa. Is yours against Duqual? Your team?
I haven't played Duqual, and I think again, like for me, this is the week for us to really start seeing a lot of stuff, like a lot of potential movement or settling of stuff in Division 2. Because you've got Literal at Paradox. Again, most people are saying those are 2 top 3 teams. You've got Goon Squad Gamma at Hyperion. Again, if Gamma pulls off an upset here, how far would Hyperion fall? New Wave versus BDE. Both teams there are really looking to make a statement. And so the question off of that, again, can come down to team structure. Because, again, BDE, again, they certainly let us know last week that they certainly felt they were being underrated by us, especially that bot lane of Monk and New Life, and that it's not just simply the James Moriarty show. And they also brought up Golem 24. So I think, again, we do have that tendency to slightly disregard them. They're continuing to add people as well. This is a team that is going to be able to kind of eventually put their best foot forward. They can switch up their jungle if they want. They can alter a good deal of stuff on a week-to-week basis. I just think that this is going to be a team that usually is kind of the measurement. So I don't think we can really move BDE too far.
I agree. Also, when you have a set of 10 teams and you have the understanding that no 2 teams are going to be at the exact same power level, right? It's almost impossible. Someone inevitably is going to be just outside of top 3, and I think it speaks less to BDE being weak and more to just how strong the top section of this division really is. Because BDE has shown game after game, series after series, that these guys can rock other teams. And James Moriarty, I know people, I guess, credit should go to other players on that team, but he's unbelievable in some of these performances. You know what I mean? And obviously you can't disregard that, and you can't disregard how strong this team is. And I think what people should note is that I think it speaks more to really just how good this top 4 is. To even look at a team like BDE and then say 4, which means that these top 4 teams are just powerhouse teams.
Absolutely.
And I feel like saying BDE's bot lane wasn't very good after their week 1 against Nameless is actually kind of rough, because Nameless's best players are in their bot lane. So it's really hard to say BDE is going to just not have the best bot lane when it's they were up against the focused win condition that's been trained to win lanes, and
that's your win con.
It's they're going to do well into most players, so I feel like it was almost an unfair assessment, maybe kind of rigged against their bot lane.
Yeah. And it's also early, there's more time for us to really see, and against more teams, how do they stack? Are they weaker, as maybe some people are arguing, compared to other bot lanes, or do they have some to show us that the rest of us are wrong? So,
and for me, the last thing about BDE is 2 things. If you want to look at the positive, they haven't dropped a game yet, and that has to that's got to speak volumes in regards to how things have gone for them. Again, that's for all the top 4 teams. They haven't dropped a single game. We've had 9 2-0s and 1 2-1. The other thing about this is if you want to have it as a backhanded compliment, the teams that they've played also haven't had any wins yet in a single game.
Exactly.
And that's kind of, again, that's why I think, again, the New Wave versus BDE is my thing, because I think that's going to really, that's good. That's either going to settle things, or that's going to have us back here next week going, well, how good are both of these teams? So,
moving into top 3, looks like just from what we had been sent by Ratsu, it was Killer Whales 3, Monkeys 2, and Paradox 1. My big takeaway from doing the stats from last week and really watching what happened in these games, I'm going to change. I know my assessment was that, obviously I'm a little biased, but I have to believe that we're good. I personally thought last week that we were the strongest team in the league. I think Literal Monkeys is the strongest team in Division 2 as of this week. After looking at those guys' numbers, how many win conditions they have, and the kind of smackdowns that they can put out, that is the only team that actually really terrifies me in this division, is Literal Monkeys. And to me, they should sit at 1 right now.
I actually like was like looking at it, and I was looking at it from like strength of schedule first kind of a thing. And if I'm like saying Hyperion is 5th, well, nobody else has beaten Hyperion yet except for Killer Whales, and so it's like from strength of schedule, Killer Whales is like above them in that way. But I think like Literal Monkeys has more like just like raw numbers.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think the performances that Literal Monkeys have put out, and I guess Literal Monkeys and Killer Whales have both faced Ugly Game and put up very similar numbers. You have slightly quicker game times for Killer Whales. You have slightly higher goal difference of 15 for Literal Monkeys. So they all hover around the same, sort of statistics, that series. So I found it hard to really gauge, like, who is better just by looking at that series. To your point, yeah, I think it's a fair point that maybe Killer Whales has played a better team. Maybe they should deserve a higher spot. But I think if you look at just each player individually and you see how many of their players are like giga stomping, I know as a Killer Whale myself, I'm worried about that Week 9 matchup. I think it's going to be for sure our toughest matchup, and I'm willing to concede in my own head that first seed.
I mean, you have 7 more weeks to make it up, right?
Yeah, exactly. I have a feeling that it's entirely possible that that Killer Whales and Literal Monkeys go. What would this? However many in O until that last week. I think it's entirely a possibility. I think it'd be a really cool storyline too. That end of the season, like who's gonna knock the other one out of undefeated.
Yeah, like have a first seed is undefeated and second seed is undefeated except for first seed.
Except for first seed, yeah, that would be kind of cool. What about Paradox? From your guys' perspective, to me, because of that, the aforementioned stuff about Monkeys and Whales, I had them at 3rd. Is there anything you guys have to say about that?
Yeah, for me, like it was hard to say much about like the top 3 because it's like they all look clean, and it's just like, well, we haven't seen them be like really pushed. So like, what does it look like when they get behind? We don't know. What does it look like when they get punished for like being too greedy or at an objective? We have no clue. So until we see that, like I don't really feel like it's solid up here. But I also put Imperial 3rd just because I felt like the top 2 teams, it was just like one team is just like super scary and like I can compare them off of Ugly Gang, and I think Killer Whales is 1st. So I was like, okay, Imperial must be 3rd, but I don't feel like it's rock solid. This is gonna stay here. Yeah,
I think these upcoming weeks it'll be fluid. Yeah.
So there's no way to do this without have it be cemented. I've returned.
Yeah.
So here's my question.
Picked up my phone call, which is great.
What's up, Feathers?
So here's my question: if Paradox wins this week, does everyone drop Monkeys to 3rd and would a win by Paradox be enough to put them into 1st in your eyes?
I'll go first because I'm biased. I've played a team that very closely resembles Paradox in the Fishbowl, and I think they're a great team. I don't feel like they were as scary as I foresee Monkeys to be. I personally think that my team would be able to, not like without difficulty, but I think we would feel comfortable feeling like we would win that series against Paradox. I'm not the same for Monkeys. I think if Paradox beat Monkeys, to me it speaks more to maybe I'm overestimating Monkeys. Less so than maybe I'm underestimating Paradox. But that's just me. And I understand that I obviously have bias because my own team is up here, so.
Yeah, there's also like the concern of like maybe Imperial Paradox just has a really good matchup into like how Monkeys wants to play the game.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah.
Because that happened actually. Like we've seen this historically happen where like Monkeys has like a very clear defined play style, and if you can figure out how to counter it and like you can play that counter well, then Monkeys can lose.
Yeah, I think that's the reason I'm comfortable playing against Paradox, is because I think we know how they play, and I think we have a game in their early game style that can really shut down what I think is their best win con, which is Trajan. And I think we did it in Fishbowl playoffs, and I don't see why we can't do that again. But to me, monkeys. I think my team's weakness, and I know this. Maybe I shouldn't be like leaking strats. I think the way to beat us is if you're going to beat us, you got to crush us early game. I think we are probably the best late game team in the league. But monkeys, I think, is the best early game team in the league. So, to me, yeah, that sort of dichotomy of like this team may be stronger than this team, but who plays well into who. I think that's where that falls into place.
So it's kind of like it's a game of like, can Imperial like withstand the literal monkey's storm, and if they can, what can they do with it?
The monkeys just chuck in poop or whatever monkeys do.
Yeah. Bonking you with a hard banana.
Yeah, exactly. Can they withstand the absolute ape storm of monkeys laning phase? Yeah. But so where does that leave us with the top three? I know I had monkeys, whales, paradox. Ratsu, did you have whales, monkeys, paradox?
Monkeys, paradox. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Leopard or feathers? Anyone to break the tie?
So this is my problem, right? My problem is that I'm an irrational K stan. So obviously monkeys is number one. Like that's
okay.
Like I
agree with you. I'm not even on my own side here.
When I see K on a roster, because I have seen it's one of those times when you see a player be clutch over and over and over and over again and overperform to get their team to where they need to be. Like, it's really hard for me to
shake that sort of notion.
Yeah,
you get that. That meme, the dog who like sees Nom or whatever is like that. You see that all over again.
Right.
Like,
so
crap.
it's really, really hard for me to vote at any point against K.
So it sounds like that settles it, right? Monkeys.
Yeah, I'm going to follow that in. Yeah, I'm going to follow that in as well by saying monkeys at 1. Again, we played them. They obviously mostly had their way with us, but it speaks volumes to them as a team in the sense that in the match results on game 2, when we played against them, I had a relatively good second game against their top laner, Potato Tomato. Like, he went 1-5-3, and the rest of the map was 2-1-11, 12-1-2, 4-2-10, and 2-2-11. Like,
yeah, I noticed that.
So it even again, setting one of their players behind the
they
rest.
They have too many win cons.
Yeah,
for sure.
They just continued their steamroll.
They've got insurance. They've got the receipts. They've got backup. Yeah.
And just knowing how monkeys tends to do things, and like they have an organization that more so than trying to improve them as individuals knows a formula of how to get them to play together. So it's not just as simple as they're strong individually. Like, monkeys teams, even in IBS, are generally difficult because they have a good understanding of how to play the game.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I'm going to say about... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Leopard.
I was just going to move us on.
Just the last thing. I think the one last statement I'll make about these top 4 teams, as opposed to other teams, is you have to develop an explicit strategy with a 2-0 team. You have to come in. You can't simply go 15 minutes before the game. Here's the op.gg. What are we thinking?
Yeah.
You've got to come in. You have to have a plan, and you have to execute that plan. However you go about it.
And coming into week 3, it's a heck of a lot easier to develop that plan than week 1 or week 2.
Especially when you have a really thorough stat sheet that somebody really cool put together. Just saying.
Yeah. It goes to show what being bored at work will do for you.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Work from home life.
Alrighty. So I think so this is what I have on the sheet. I have Literal Monkeys 1, Killer Whales number 2, Imperial Paradox number 3, Big Duck Entourage Sapphire number 4, Hyperion Gaming Origin number 5, The Comfy Cartel number 6,
What?
New Wave Esports number 7, Goon Squad Gaming Gamma number 8, Nameless Predators number 9, and Ugly Gang number 10. That's the official ranking.
I was right this week. Mine were right this week. Mine were close. I think there was a lot more agreement this week, and obviously that makes sense. We have just twice as much, to go off of. So
absolutely.
And the parts we didn't agree on were kind of like in soupy areas.
Yeah, there were flip floppy. Like a few at the top of the standings, or a few like the 2 teams in the middle of the standings. So yeah. Should we go to Division 1 then?
We are going to Division 1. I think there was a lot more shakeup in Division 1.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna be honest.
Oh,
I have a few at the top that I feel comfortable about. I have a few at the bottom I feel comfortable about, and there's about 6 teams in the middle that I have zero idea where I should place them, because it's a game of round robin. It feels like.
So I should just like have everybody in number 5 to start, and then we like pull 2 teams
Probably.
out. Right. Okay.
I only feel comfortable about one team at the top and one team at the bottom. Everybody else to me is kind of in the soup.
I feel okay about 2 and 9.
Yeah.
Less so about 2, and I think you might know where I'm getting at this because of an 0-2 loss last week. But I still feel like I should put them at 2. But then again, I could just be totally wrong there. I have no clue.
Let's make this easy and stop the suspense. Who's number 10?
I have Corvus Storm.
Yeah.
I go Corvus 10, Rising 9 for myself.
Monkeys Rising. I was
Yes,
like, who is
Monkeys
Rising?
Monkeys Rising 9.
I put Monkeys Rising 8th.
I have them 7, but then again, like they could be 5 or 8. I have no idea.
Who are you confident about 9th?
For me, Pod.
Yeah. That's what I put 9th
I feel more confident. I'm not gonna. I have heard some leaks about roster movements that aren't on the sheet yet, or positional movements, and I think they will be better than they have been in the last 2 weeks because of it. However, I do know that they have been through hell and back, just in terms of internal sort of, coordination and struggle and getting on the same page. And I think just as much as the roster movements are going to help them, I think it's a brand new team again this week, and I think that's going to hurt them. So for me,
I have
that's 9.
to agree with Pod 9. I've never really seen this kind of roster movement to this degree, and the struggles that they're having with the roster from an admin side.
Yeah.
You see it really pan out to make somebody go from bottom to top. I've seen it go
especially
from
in 1 week.
Bottom to mid-pack, like overall, right? Like I've seen it.
Yeah.
If you do this big shuffle and you're stable, from that point on, doing the big shuffle early can work out, But generally, like, if this continues in this area, I do not have high hopes for where Pod ends up.
Can we jump to 1?
I think
Clownfish
so.
9.
I think so.
Ratsu, who do you have at 1?
Clownfish 9.
Same. I have Clownfish 9. I understand
Holy-
So this is my question. Given that y'all are the experts and I am just a humble host with a frozen webcam picture, does the fact that Clownfish 9 has had one of their players rank out change?
Ranked out.
I'd have to look
It was
at
a sub. It was Razorback.
Was it
right?
Razorback? Okay.
I
No, it was
believe
Chonk.
No, it was Chonk. That was Chonk.
I don't think carry that.
That's a sub. That's a sub player. A sub jungle player. Levy is their starting jungler, who I think is really strong.
Yeah.
So fair point, but it is a sub, and it's not their
This
starting
is why I
lineup.
ask. This is why I ask.
Yeah.
It's a fair question. Fair question
Yeah.
for sure.
For Clownfish 9, it's like the game that they lost. They were like, to me, it looked like they were experimenting. Like they didn't play their normal like weak side top. They lost 1 game, by the way, to Monkeys Rising, and how they lost was they put Fiora in top lane instead of like an Ornn, which is what they did the other 2 games.
Yeah.
And then they just and like Fiora got clowned on by, I think it was a set, and they were just like, oh, okay, I guess we can't play strong side top. Let's go back to weak side top, and then they just like crushed the other 2 games.
And I think this is a team that is willing to do that in a game, on top of in a scrim. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I personally would avoid. I'm the type of player and I don't know. I guess sort of analyst that would think scrims are great for practice and trying out stuff. When I get into an actual game, like I'm trying to win. I am not pulling any punches. I am not gonna put myself in a position that I might feel uncomfortable. Like, hey, I haven't really tried this. I'm gonna play stuff. Oops, sorry. That I know I'm gonna play stuff that I know I'm gonna succeed on. You know what I mean? And I think Clownfish good on them, but I wouldn't be doing that.
I
so.
think that there is an element of if you are the kind of people that can keep your mental, right, where you go, we're trying something, this isn't our strength, let's try it game 2 and see how it works. I think there's definitely like a case of how that works and how that performs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared because, like, to me that just like makes them really volatile, right? Like they could put anything on any team comp and just and if it works, then like, oh, that's really scary. But if it doesn't work, then they can just like go back to what works.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, that like they're so comfortable in their own play that they're willing to just put riskier stuff on the line because they can just be like, well, I'll beat you next game. And fair point. I didn't even think of that, so.
Yeah, if you're that confident.
Yeah, if you're that confident. So it sounds like we're pretty in agreement on at least 1 in 10, maybe 9.
Yeah, 9 pod is agreeable, I think.
Again, the one thing with me is that I think I wouldn't have had pod any higher than 8, just simply because, again, we have such an unstable roster. On that point, again, I'll certainly agree. But when I see pod, I see a lot of potential and people who haven't necessarily been necessarily given a ton of time. Again, they're bringing back Alpha. They have a new mid laner. I think again Max is the new 80k or something like that. Like they have a lot of stuff that's kind of coming out, and there is that level of like, okay, this team could potentially hit some higher highs. It might take a little while, perhaps maybe a week, but there's at least there is some overt, explicit talent there that could break out and potentially carry a game. Whereas Monkeys Rising, again, very, very solid team, but they win as a team, and that's kind of their, a lot of their backing off of that. They have to win with everybody on the same page.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword in that regard, right?
Yeah. So.
8th? Is Monkeys right?
That's
sure.
That's what I have.
I mean, I have teams placed. I'll feel more comfortable with 3-4, but the other ones I have no idea.
Yeah, I put Monkeys 8th. To me, it's just like they've 2-1 teams that I think are strong, right? 2-1 and then 2-1 again. So it's okay, I think this is reasonable. But
right. Didn't they get 1-2'd first week?
In both series they've taken a game, but they've lost in the end.
Yeah. They always they don't win, but they.
And I recall the game 1 against Agni Kai that they won was surprisingly dominant.
And I'm still waiting to see if we are having a tough time ranking the middle of the pack here for one of two reasons, right? It's either A, that all of these teams are pretty weak and it's kind of a coin flip each week, or B, all of these teams are stronger than we think and it's a bit of a coin flip. You know what I mean? I don't know if they're sitting above that bar or below that bar, and I don't know if we're going to see that for the next few weeks, the next few weeks rather.
In my mind, I have a team that is strong, and that's why I put 5th, and we'll get there when we get there. But that team is kind of the bar I'm measuring every other team against, because I think that team is reasonably strong. I think they'd probably get 4th or 5th in Division 2. So I'm measuring every team against them because I think that they are reasonably strong based off of what they've shown.
Okay.
So given that you have the most firm idea, how about we jump right there? Who is this team?
Oasis Force, actually.
Fire.
Oasis Fire, yeah, sorry.
And that's in 5.
I think they're strong too. I had them at 4.
Okay. I think that you probably put TDH 5th?
I put TDH 3rd.
And
I'm more confident about Oasis. I put RAR 5th. I'm sorry. I know they 2-0'd a team that is considered supposed to be at the top of the standings. I cannot, looking at those early game stats, and I haven't seen enough games out of them to feel confident in ranking them any higher. It feels at what point can we call it consistent, and is it infrequent enough to just be that was a fluke? Because to me, it's entirely possible that IG goes on to just 2-0 teams from here out. I think they have the talent to do that. And we could very well see that like that Roar game was a fluke. They had some pretty big leads going into both of those games, and it felt like they had a complete lack of how to of an understanding of how to close out. And I also acknowledge I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, and Roar could be really good and consistent, and IG could be weaker than I think. But I just have to go with my gut on that one, like this. So that's just all I can say about it.
Yeah, I mean, RAR get like 2 1s, Corvus Storm, and then 2 O's IG. It's like, to me, it's there was
Weird.
there was a team in IBS like last split that was like controlled chaos, and they would beat literally every team because like there was no prep. Like it was just like you just queued into flex, and
They were like, well.
Yeah, it's like we're just gonna pick whatever the hell we want, and you're gonna have to deal with it. And that's kind of how I feel about RAR. Like they can beat anybody, but they can lose to anybody, because like they 2-0 IG because like they're just chaos, and IG wasn't prepared for it. But like
Also, I think IG should have banned the Orin, but
yeah,
that's just me.
I think that was a disrespectful move by IG, and they paid for it as they should.
Definitely got shut up a little bit for that one. I think it was the idea going into it was looking at and correct me if I'm getting his name wrong. Peter Griefer is the top laner for
Peter Griefer, yes.
Peter Griefer versus Bird, and I understand this is no disrespect to Peter Griefer. Bird is just a well-known entity for being a beast of a mechanical player. So I understand the thought process of like maybe we don't put bans topside because Bird should on paper win this matchup. And then Orin does Orin things once he gives everyone stats and gets bonus stats and extends CC. So,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, but we're off track. So, I mean, we're like, so Oasis Fire is either 4th or 5th, and then basically it's like we have to decide where RAR lands, because if we can, is RAR 3rd or is RAR 5th?
I have a feeling you are more confident than I am.
I think that RAR knows how to end games better than other teams do right now, and that they'll just get wins off of that fact alone.
I can definitely agree with that. They did end the game against IG. Too.
Yeah, and they end the game versus Corvus Storm, and like if they keep just like forcing the end of the game as fast as they possibly can, like the second they get a lead, they just like jam the end of the game and that's it. Then I think that they will at least make playoffs. There's no reason they shouldn't.
I think they will. I think for sure they'll make playoffs. For exactly the reasons you just mentioned. They're gonna pick up, like, whether it be because they're just, like you said, controlled chaos, or whether there is a method to the madness. I think they're gonna pick up wins for sure. And I think they'll make playoffs.
Yeah, and because like I'm fairly confident they'll make playoffs, and I think that they do have like some method to their madness. I'm kind of comfortable putting them 3rd. I don't think that they're gonna finish 1st or 2nd, but I don't think that they'll finish 5th, because they're like, if they've beat IG already, then they just have to beat the other teams. And if we're saying like IG is 2nd, then let's say IG beats every other team, then they already have like that 1 loss cushion.
Yeah,
like they can drop a series and they're still 3rd.
So you're saying IG or IG 2 Roar 3?
Yeah, Roar 3.
I can agree to that. I like your logic behind it.
I will get behind it because y'all have studied this way more than I did.
I did my best, and I came to what felt like the exact place I started after looking at all this. I was like, what the hell is going on in this division? But anyway.
I
think again, it's just this is an incredibly volatile division. We've spoken about it many times. Even in the case of Oasis Fire, as well as RAR, as odd as it is to say this, RAR, while they are dropping games, there is that kind of semblance of consistency with them, which is odd. Which is odd to say. Yeah, no, and we have a tendency to go, okay, well, it's a RAR team. These 4 players are playing multiple leagues, much as Imperial is. Like they know each other. They've known each other for a long time. So there is a lot more synergy present on this roster than typical RAR teams, which is okay, we're just going to be the
Right.
mother bird vomiting up whatever it is to our chicks, and that's our roster.
Just some
Um,
regurgitated set of player, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also, again, like all of the teams we kind of have in this area, it's almost just simply, it's on a game-to-game basis where we would play some of these teams. If one of these teams looks bad in one single game at the start, I'd be like, no, I should have had them at 6th rather than 3rd.
Yeah.
That's how close these teams are for me.
Yeah, and so next is like the other winning team, right?
Yeah, so this
'Cause
is
we want-
kind
we
of
want-
where we go. Do we put TD Harmony 4 or do we put TD Harmony 5?
TD Harmony 4. I think TD Harmony is above Oasis.
Okay.
Although
agree, I
I
agree.
think that that's
I think Oasis
slim.
is good.
I
think it's
that's-
slim too. I just played this team earlier this week. I was shocked that it was like a. That's such a rude way of putting it. I was about to say good scrim. That's not really what I meant. Like I thought it was going to be just a lot more laid back in terms of like the effort we would have to put in. But like yeah, they made us like work for stuff. Like really work for advantages. They made us work for and I think especially because of our previous sort of weak matchups in the first 2 weeks, we had gotten into a sort of complacency with playing teams. I think we got away with some stuff against Ugly Gang that we will not get away with moving forward. We got away with some stuff against Hyperion that we will not moving forward. And these guys definitely were like, hey, don't do this next time, otherwise we're going to beat you for it. So I think they're better than a lot of these other teams, but I agree, just slightly less so than TDH.
Yeah, and like TDH, the only reason I'm putting them even above Oasis is because they haven't lost, but also like the teams that they beat, I don't rate highly. So
yeah,
I don't know if TDH winning is a sign of them being really good, or just they played 2 of the weaker teams, and as a result, they
So we have Roar 3, TDH 4, Oasis Fire 5, Monkeys was at 8.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then what about 6, 7?
So I
Okay.
think this is pretty simple, right? So being that Agni Kai beat Goon Squad Gaming Sigma, Agni Kai 6, Sigma 7.
Yeah,
I had that, but I thought in my head I just switched it.
Yeah,
I don't know
so,
why. Ratsu, you speak. You know more probably.
Okay, so Agni Kai, they had 2 really nice wins, and then they had like a game where it didn't look like the 2 games where they won. It looked like they just like kind of like had a nightmare or something, and they like lost for some reason. And it like I didn't talk to them, so I don't know what the exact reason was. But like it was almost like flipped. It was like really strong game 1, weak game 2, really strong game 3. And it was just like, what the like, is this blue side gap or something? Like
Playing devil's advocate, what do we feel about the fact that I think that there was a big understanding that the roster on Goon Squad Gaming, this is Sigma, I believe, right? Leper?
Yes.
On Sigma, like going into the season, people were like, "Oh, these are big names. These are guys who have shown that they can, really play." And I personally hadn't known a lot of these players. But what do we think about the fact that a lot of people were saying these guys are good, and now we have them like 6 or 7?
You can go, Leper.
So
I have thoughts.
I'm biased, right? Because I play for Goon Squad, right? Like I'm intimately involved.
But you also have
with
more
these players.
more information than
Right.
we do.
So it's one of those things where whether for meta, whether for whatever reason, like they brought in a coach, right? And they are working on changing the way that they play. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That the way that they're currently playing, the avenues to victory that they took in the past are different than the ones that through the person that they have in authority over them.
I see what you
They're
mean.
different now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the answer. That's what, because I asked them the same thing. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Why are you guys struggling? And that was essentially the answer that I was given.
To me, on paper, GSG should be the better team. On
paper,
they haven't shown that.
Results.
The results are the results, exactly. but on the other side of the coin, have either of these teams shown, to Ratsu's point about when Agni Kai wins, they win, but when they lose, they just look like they didn't do anything? Have either of these teams shown that they deserve to be ahead of the other team? Which is why I struggle to be like, which one's which.
Yeah, I think Agni Kai has one thing over GSGS, and that is, like, all their players are fairly consistent, whereas GSGS, like, their bot either does well or their bot just, like, loses super hard. And, like, I'm not, like, knocking on them, because, like, I think Decker's a great guy, but, like, in that series, I think he, like, had more deaths than almost anybody else on his team.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, like, this is, like, a problem. Like, is he like, I don't know, are they trying to figure out, like, support roams early game and he's just getting caught in the jungle on, like, weird jungle pathing timers? Like, I don't know, I haven't seen the games, but Decker's dying a lot, and, like, bot lane is looking kind of weak. And whereas Agni Kai, it's kind of like, bot lane's kind of stable, top lane's kind of stable, like, you know, like, they're like, GSGS won through top on their win. And
I think there are roster movements as well on Agni Kai. I don't know if this has been brought up or if anyone's heard about this. I think it's public information.
looking?
I'm gonna double check the thing because I don't want to say something if it's not my place to be saying. If it's on the sheet, I'm gonna say it. It is not, so I'm not gonna say anything. I have heard that there's roster movements. I think it was on a stream of another org, and I didn't remember it until now. So I think we'll also after this week have to see if there is roster movement, and how that pans out for you know that team. If it's going to make them better, if it's going to make them worse.
And actually, last week, if we look at the where we put people, we put Agni Kai third. And the entire logic behind it was their roster is just good, right? Like, same thing as GSGS. Like, the roster is just good, so they should be top 3. But we're not seeing that. Like,
they're not executing. You know.
It might just be. I call it the too many cooks problem, where it's like you have a lot of good.
Cooks?
Yeah, too many cooks.
Smart. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I call this the too many cooks problem, where you know what you want to do, but everybody has a different like road to get there, and their road is the only road they're going to take because they're the person that's always like driven before.
And when all 5 of you get to the finish line and you realize somebody didn't make it along the way, you're left wondering where do we go wrong?
Yeah, and so it's like. The too many cooks problem, right? I think Imperial struggles with this as well. That's why they lost to RAR. That too many cooks. They probably, okay, we have this big lead. Like, everybody just do what you want to do, and let's like smash them into the floor. And then RAR just like, haha, controlled chaos. Hee hee.
So
like,
XD.
This actually works really well into what we want to do, right? Which is we want to talk about today's games.
Today's games.
Yes,
let's
today's
games.
So we've talked. It's really interesting that we've been having these debates today, right? So the first one is just given that we're talking about RAR. It's RAR and Agni Kai are playing tonight.
I think RAR beats Agni Kai for the same reason they beat Imperial, actually.
So it's an opportunity, I guess, for Agni Kai to show where they belong, right? Like
this is a good game to say. You know what? Are we wrong this week, and are we right last week about Agni Kai? And on Roar's side, are we right this week about Roar, and were we wrong last week?
And
I definitely believe this series goes to 3 games. I think that it isn't going to necessarily be a 2-0 sweep because, in general, at some points, RAR does have that tendency to kind of fall down a little bit, and they have stumbles at points in which people will go, well, again, RAR, as odd as it sounds, again, we use Oasis Fire as kind of the measuring stick. I almost feel like RAR is like trying to figure out how powerful the division actually is, as odd as it sounds. Because and coming off of that, I do think that Agni Kai should not necessarily come in as a massive underdog. I would not be surprised if their 5 could absolutely punch Rare in the mouth on this.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
they could punch Doki right in the mouth.
Yeah, and I do think that if Agnikai comes in with an explicit plan and they get a couple of, counter picks, or alternatively, they really, really hyper focus on a couple of areas, they are going to find success against Rare, and we're going to have this discussion about them next week. Much as well be a discussion about Rare.
Yeah,
You go, Ratsu.
I think that Agnikai can beat Roar if they really worked out a game plan and they they really know what they're doing. But my concern is that they didn't do that.
Which is fair.
Yeah. Which we'll have to find out. That's what this game is going to show us, I think, or at least give us some insight into. Is this a team that has a method to the madness, or is this team coin flipping their way to as many wins as they possibly can get?
Yeah.
And to me, the first 2 matches on the list, TD Harmony versus Oasis Fire and Monkeys Rising versus Goon Squad Gaming Sigma, I think bringing this back to why we were so confused about the middle of the pack rankings. I think this is just going to be teams showing that, hey, this team, you should put me one higher than them next week. And I think as the weeks go on, these middle of the pack matchups, I think it's just going to show us a little bit more into who has the slight edge over who. Or, on the other hand, we're going to find out that these teams lack just enough consistency to lock themselves one spot higher in the rankings next week.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
I think that both of these matches also lead to a question that we might experience, right? Because I think where this division is heading is that we're going to end up with 3 distinct groups, so to speak. We're going to have top teams, we're going to have distinct middle teams, and we're going to have bottom teams. And I think that there is going to be a pretty significant gap between each of those
each tier.
And
it's going to make Gauntlet awesome, though.
Oh, it absolutely is. I think that these 2 matches are going to determine how big those tiers are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
to talk about Monkeys Rising versus Goon Squad Gaming Sigma, this is one just by caliber of players, experience and gold, should be fairly one-sided. But given what we've seen out of Monkeys Rising the past 2 weeks, and given what we've seen about Sigma these past 2 weeks, I don't have a lot of confidence, I'll be honest.
Yeah, they both are 2-1 with TD Harmony, right?
The one thing I'm going to say here is I have to give a lot of credit to Monkeys Rising's coach, Fury, not Furry. I know Fury. This, despite all of their things, they have come out and really proven themselves in the first couple weeks, though the actual results aren't necessarily there on wins and losses. This is a team that, again, hasn't given people an easy game yet, and I appreciate that.
And this is a team that, for the most part, was playing in IBS literally 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Literally 6 weeks ago. And we're sitting here talking about them as being a serious middle-of-the-pack gold team.
Yeah.
And that's impressive,
Yeah. Do we want to, go down the list of what we want to predict?
I think TD Harmony is going to beat Oasis Fire. I don't have a hard prediction there.
I'm going to say 2-1 TD Harmony.
I'm going to say 2-1 Oasis. I think that TD Harmony is getting a bit lazy against these lower teams, and I think Oasis is going to punch them in the mouth. I think TD Harmony will finish higher, but because they'll learn, but I think Oasis Fire can surprise them.
I think the thing that I feel strongest about is RAR 2-0 Agnikai.
Ooh! Spicy.
I mean, the thing I feel strongest about is obviously Cloud9 2-0 Corvus Storm.
Well, that's a very, very fair 2-0. Let me rephrase that.
I think that's the clear 2-0.
And then the other game that I feel really strongly about is Imperial.
IG Pod should also be a 2-0 for IG.
Right, it's when we have top team versus what we consider bottom team, we have pretty safe predictions. But
also, love you Corvus, love you Pod, nothing against you personally.
It's
just, I think this is an uphill battle. But,
it is definitely an uphill battle. And I think it's going to be... I think Monkeys is going to lose 1-2 again.
I say the other way around, 2-1. I think for sure it's a 3-game series. I can see it going the other way, but to me, these teams are both losing gold every minute on average, right?
Yeah.
These are both teams that as the game goes on, they're falling more and more behind. I think the only thing, to me, that makes Monkeys, that I think they're going to be in a better position, is that Monkeys is actually averaging themselves up in gold at 15, right?
Okay.
And I think against teams that don't average themselves to lose gold every minute, they can punish a team that can win early and lose late. But I think against another team that is losing early and also not picking up really any sort of gold advantages as the game goes on, I think Monkeys Rising should have a 2-1, but we'll see.
I think Goon Squad's going to win 2-1 because they actually might not get smashed in bot lane. I don't want to make that sound mean, but I can't think of a nice way to say it.
Yeah, it didn't sound mean. It didn't.
Okay, yeah, because Goon Squad Gaming, I feel like if their bot lane is just even, they win the game. If their bot lane is even or ahead, they just win against most teams. But they never get that. But I think against Monkeys, they will get that.
Isn't Buried Donut the AD for?
And Buried Donut...
Buried's rocking a 6.13 KDA in the bot lane, 33%, a third of their team's damage.
Yeah, but it's
I think a lot of their early victories are coming out of their bot lane.
Correct.
So, I mean, just to counter your point, what happens if that bot lane does what they did the last 2 weeks and they pull out a gold lead? What do what do Decker and Bam do?
This is the only thing that I have to say, because I know Ratsu has seen it. And I know that Feathers has seen it, and I know you haven't seen it.
I'm out of the loop.
Which is what happens when Bam actually performs at his level, right?
Okay.
That's.
I look forward to seeing it. I will admit I am very new to a lot of these players. This is my first time sort of in this competitive circle. So
yeah, I want to say I actually had a team in a league with Buried Donut and Pink Penguin, and I think that there are still IBS bot lanes that could beat them. They have a very straightforward style, and if you can counter that style, you just win. And I think
it's very one-dimensional.
Yeah. When you figure it out, it's oh, this is just obvious.
Yeah.
But
when someone pulls the same chess opening every time, and you're wait a second.
Or when somebody's just an Alawi one trick or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, when someone can only play 2 champions in the top lane.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel called out here right now. Damn.
The one thing again is that if we're going to make that argument about Monkeys Rising, can we also make that same argument about Goon Squad Gaming Sigma with how they've been? They say they're trying new things, but this is a team that, rightly or wrongly, perhaps came in going, well, our methods have usually worked, and here they're sitting at 0-2, staring down, a Monkeys Rising team who, talent-wise, they should be better, but here we are.
Yes, we'll have to find out, won't we?
Yeah. I do think that this one, I always had the impression every single time with any team, absolutely any team going up, I would be no, I can absolutely see Goon Squad Gaming Sigma taking any team that has a win 2-3 games. But right now, in regards to that, I could see that. But I also see them, if they lose this week, that's 0-3, and you have no margin of error beyond that point. Again, you've put yourself substantially behind the 8 ball. I think they win this week, but I think in general, if they get in their own heads, this again could be really, really detrimental for them.
Yeah. I think
they're the
counter
the best games of the week or some of the worst.
Yeah, to counter
a
that
perspective.
Yeah. To counter Feathers though, I think Goon Squad Gaming, the reason why they'll win, you can't use the same argument, is they've been playing in gold for longer, so they just have more experience to pull from.
But if they've been running the exact same thing over the course of a year plus, and that's what they're renowned for, and it's now not working, They have the ability. I think they're going to win. Like, that's my prediction. But this is also a team that had developed an identity for a while, had a lot of people hyping them up, and now here they are.
Yeah.
That's all.
So with that, let's look at the other division, right? So we've got probably what should be a very, very exciting stream.
Yes.
Banger.
I think this is the game to watch this week, hands down. And I also feel strongly that I think I know the outcome already.
So that would be Literal Monkeys versus Imperial Paradox.
Absolutely, it is the game to watch. This is the first time 2-0 teams are going against each other. Someone's gonna take a loss. Maybe both teams will take losses. Who knows? But I think that, and after looking more at these numbers and looking how these teams are winning, all the 2-0 teams, I've come to the conclusion that, in my opinion, Imperial Paradox is a sort of microcosm of BDE Sapphire. I think that BDE Sapphire is going to win and they're going to lose by James Moriarty. I think Imperial Paradox is the same way with Trajan, but far less steep, if that makes any sense. I think they have more backups than Sapphire does. It's not talking to me. I was like, what? I think Monkeys 2-0s. And I think it's because Monkeys has stronger laners all around. And I think they're going to show how nasty they are of an early game team. And I think they're gonna send Trajan and Paradox, packing their bags and going into next week's stream saying, what do we do to not get beat that hard?
Yeah,
that's my hot take for the stream.
I mean, for a hot take, I don't feel like it was even that spicy.
Not even that hot? Oh, so you agree? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I low-key agree with this because what is a jungler's worst nightmare? Can you answer?
As a jungler, just solo queue is my worst nightmare. Not having the /mute all button is my worst nightmare.
A jungler's worst nightmare is when they press tab after 3 camping and see every lane has died once.
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah.
and I think little monkeys can do that. Yeah. I think little monkeys
they can get solo kills in each of the lanes before I can't remember who the jungler is. Morgana? Bathwater?
Yeah.
Before Morgana's Bathwater, I can't believe I'm saying that. Before Morgana hits camp 4, you say Morgana hits 12 CS, and then you see that you're 3-0 or 4-0 or whatever in kills.
I think it could happen.
I agree.
I think monkeys just might slap Imperial Paradox across their own palace.
Yeah, I think Paradox is going to be a little shook by this series, and I think that looking at how well Kaiten plays this video game, and then looking at the fact that Goon Squad Gaming Gamma, I think was only 100 to 200 gold down. Their mid laner into Trajan, Shangu 22, when they had played them, which to me said Trajan might not be the powerhouse that some people view him as. In terms of why this team is ranked that high, right? And I think, in my opinion, a lot of people rank them this highly because they see Trajan and they're like, this guy can mid, and he can. His play style is, I'm going to smack you in lane, I'm going to win game, and I think he might lose at his own game tonight. Yeah,
and that's scary, right? When your win condition can't pull it out.
Yeah, if someone else is better at your win con than you are, is terrible.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And I think that could happen. I mean, I'm not going to be I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to 3 games, right?
I mean, I wouldn't either, but I had to have something spicy to say, right?
Yeah. I think monkeys definitely can slap Imperial Paradox around. Now,
you're saying it's spicier than I am. I won't even go there, but yeah.
I mean, I think the spicier take might be that
I'm gonna say, what if
down the line
average of a 24-minute game time? How spicy is that? 2 quick slaps.
I don't think that'll happen. I think
you don't think it'll happen.
I think
it could.
Yeah,
I think it could happen. I think 2 quick bada bing bada boom games could happen.
So what are
I think they'll get to
doing? do we have
So,
this
one sec.
Yeah, we
Just
should move
let
on
me-
to another
Let
game.
me just say one thing really quick. First of all, the fact that Little Monkeys has side selection in game 1 is absolutely huge for the perception of this series, because kiting with counterpick is probably one of the most dangerous things in this entire division.
So you think they're gonna pick red? Game one?
I think again that would be what I would be predicting. I think that
Yeah.
having that versus Trajan would be absolutely massive.
And do you think that they're gonna hold counterpick so that last pick they're gonna hold for mid over top?
absolutely
Over potato having counterpick?
absolutely? I think it's or alternatively, again, if they're going to pick something for Chitin, they're going to pick something so dominant in regards to just simply going, okay, well, we'll take this champion. You're not have fun, Trajan. Like that's.
I think we're gonna see like a Lucian or something come out. If it's
Yeah.
not last pick, if they say second game, if they play blue side, at say like Paradox wants that counter pick, I think we're gonna see like an early pick Lucian or something out of Monkeys, and just try and say screw it, we don't need the counter pick. We're just gonna beat you with something
Yeah.
that's gonna shoot you out of lane.
And the one last thing that I will say is that I do think we are selling Imperial's bot lane a little bit short in the context of stuff. I agree on the side of that the Canyon, like in regards to people calling it the Trajan show. Trux is a very solid AD carry, and he, again, we kind of shift away from him a little bit more than we should. I think again it may not come in this series. But I do think that we have to understand that they aren't as much of a one-trick pony as perhaps being perceived here.
Yeah, that goes back to kind of what I was saying. Like, in the same regard that I think they have a bit of a stronger win lane, not as much so as Sapphire. You know what I mean? Like, Sapphire, I really think is going to live and die by James. I think Imperial definitely has tools. I think Cleo looks really good on some of her more comfortable picks. Trucks, I again personally don't really know Trucks that well, but have heard just solid performer, solid laner. The numbers show that. So yeah, for sure, I agree. It's not just like sole Trajan show, but anyway, we should keep moving on.
I think Comfy to
Can we want to ask? I want to ask because people keep saying this. You can't throw games intentionally, right? Right?
No.
No, you can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was someone on something that will remain nameless that was saying I wouldn't be surprised if Comfy throws this.
Again, for us, quite frankly, it's our jungler's birthday. And
Yeah.
for one thing, and secondly, again, I'm going to be blunt. If you look at our roster and you see the fact that we have a top laner, a mid, our AD carry going back towards mid, bringing in an E sub AD carry and a support. We have 4 people in their normal natural roles here. So it's really we're here to try, but for sure we are looking to get a W in regards to this, and we would be bothered if we didn't. So that's what I will say.
I think it should be a 2-0 for Comfy.
I think it's a 2-1, but I am going with us, and that says something because usually I would not go with us. So
Yeah, Comfy 2-1, I think.
2-1.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that E-sub actually hurts you a lot.
I mean,
it's just, the
subs hurt.
having a jungler hurts us a lot. Having a jungler on our roster, our actual roster, hurts us a lot too.
Oof.
What about this next series?
Nameless Predators versus Killer Whales. One-sided series nobody should watch. Nameless Predators 2-0.
Hey!
Whales are going to be beached. Moving on. Okay.
Yeah. Whales, we're gonna wash up and then explode like whales do on a beach.
The
Moving
smell
on.
of rotting flesh shall pursue. Anyway.
I mean, on a more serious note, if Predators figure out mid-jungle issues, then I think they actually can be contentious, because...
I think so too. I think if Predators cleans that up, but...
Yeah, because their bot lane is strong, and their top lane is good weak side. It's just mid-jungle issues. And
I will
if they fix the issue, they win. They can win, but they have to fix the issue.
I don't know how well you know Whales personally. I think arguably our strongest forte moving into mid game is our mid jungle duo. So, if they're making improvements to mid jungle, I'd love to see Predators, sort of test Wales at our own game. You know.
Yeah, but like I will say, our ADC is like cracked. He can play actually every role in the game. Like he was a top laner for a whole season, and then he was a mid laner for a whole season. Now he's an ADC. Like he can play every champion in the game.
RJ.
Yeah, RJ Hoffy. So
RJ Hoffy, I can remember.
like I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, okay, just put like mid lane on like this is a meme, so I'm gonna say it. Sorry. Let's put mid lane on Galio and put jungle on Udyr and put Cassiopeia ADC, and then just like
go ham.
Yeah, let's just like let's like throw it all at the wall because they can do that.
If that comes out tonight, I'm gonna be so excited. That'll be fun. That'll be really fun.
Yeah, Galio's a bit of a meme with our team because Galio, it's either like MVP performance or like what happened.
we've played Galio mid too. Like we've pulled it out, and yeah. I really like it as a pick actually. OJ went like 11-1 on it.
And Galio's a flex pick because everybody on the team plays Galio. Yeah, like so...
I could play Galio jungle if you really needed me. You know what I mean? Like he's Galio.
I played Galio top.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that there's like things can happen, but it's like, did they figure out mid jungle well enough to contest? If they did, this will be interesting. If not, it's gonna be 2-0.
So what about Goon Squad Gaming Gamma versus Hyperion?
I think, given that they're both having some roster issues, this will be interesting to see like what core of each roster is stronger. But I wouldn't say that this matchup has a huge bearing on anything, even information about these teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I favor Goon Squad. Actually, no, sorry, I said that wrong. I favor Hyperion.
I know you were being honest, but that sounded like some planned sort of BM. You know what I mean? Like JK.
Yeah. So I think Hyperion wins just because I think that their core like is really strong, whereas like Goon Squad hasn't shown their core to be strong yet.
I think there's potential for Goon Squad, but I agree that I think that potential doesn't beat how strong Hyperion's core is.
Yeah, it's like what is present versus what is potential.
Yeah,
right.
Like I think Shangu and so I don't mess up their names. I just want to quickly pull this up.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shangu and their top laner, their new top laner, Great Ribman, have potential for sure. I think that team doesn't know how to play around win cons properly yet. Like Shangu looked good into Trajan, numbers wise.
Mm-hmm.
That says something, and I want to see that team pull something out. Like I really want to see this team be like come out of nowhere, and people are like, "Hey, look at these guys! These guys can pull off some stuff." I don't know if it's gonna happen this week though. So I mean, for me, it's 2-0 Hyperion. But
yeah, I think 2-0 Hyperion as well, just because like Goon Squad might like if your team captain is your ADC and your ADC isn't your win con, like are they shot calling for you? Because if so, they might not have the proper understanding of everything else in the game.
Yeah, I feel you.
Like ADCs usually like know how to do bot lane and like maybe dragon area stuff, but it's like when you're setting up for like a top lane, something like you want to do like a top lane or a mid lane play, it's like they don't early game have that knowledge, I guess.
Yeah.
Which so I don't. Whereas like Hyperion, it's like their bot lane is good and their top lane is good and their mid lane is good. So it's like, okay, like these are all solid players. Like I see no reason.
I'll give Seals credit. I think Seals is good. I think he makes mistakes and gets in his own head about stuff, but I think he is good too. I think this team has, all the tools they need to win.
Yeah. So I like just like looking at it, I'm like, okay, like I think all these players are good. Whereas it's like I don't know enough about Goon Squad Gaming to say yes, this team can overcome like this team that I have experienced, like knows what they're doing and how to pick on your mistakes.
Yeah. Yep. 2-0 Sapphire. I'm saying 2-0s in every one. Maybe that's because I'm an idiot. I think so too, and I want them to win. I'm gonna be honest and like say I'm biased, and I will be rooting for New Wave in this game. I don't think they're gonna win.
Yeah, I don't think New Wave can win either because sorry Feathers, but if you can't beat Comfy, I don't think you can beat.
I don't think you can beat BD. Yeah. I know again this is another team with roster movement, like internal roster movement, as well as external roster movement. Again, I'm not gonna get into specifics because I don't know leaking stuff because some people, I guess, haven't said anything yet. But yeah, I think I'm again hopeful that the roster movements are going to benefit this team. I have a feeling they're not going to, and I have a feeling they will have the opposite effect as intended, which saddens me because like I like to see teams be like, hey, how can we put together something that's going to work? Like when you see those internal roster movements, I think a lot of people are put back. And they say like, oh, why are these role swaps? Maybe they're like mad at each other. They think someone sucks at some role. But I tend to see it as like, hey, they're trying something new. They want to win. They want to put together the success story, and they're going to any length necessary to do so.
Yeah.
However, in this case, I don't think this is the right roster shift up, and I think we might see another one after this week. So
all right, I'll put your feet to the fire here. All
right.
I'm calling it. What do you think is the wrong move?
I think moving Righteous to mid lane, which is what I've heard is happening.
Yeah, he's currently listed as the mid laner.
He's currently listed as the mid laner.
I will also say that in week 1, Zero Strikes was the reason that they lost week 1.
Yeah, I mean, and this is no slight to Zero Strikes, but
I think
I think there were reasons we dropped scrims when we had our Fishbowl playoffs, right? And I think we had reasons that we lost because of our bot lane. I think our bot lane was our weakest lane. I love you, Borbor, but the results showed it, right? Like we had Borbor and Velos in the bot lane, Velos supporting Borbor, and it felt like we had more of a lost con than a win con. We won Fishbowl not by booting Borbor. We won by Fishbowl by understanding how to play through Borbor and figuring out, how to be comfortable as a team, understanding that we may see some losses in the bot lane, right? And some disadvantages. I don't see enough of a reason to bench a player like Zero Strikes and then to put a player like Righteous in the mid lane. I haven't seen enough success out of Righteous to feel comfortable putting him into a role that I think, even as a jungler, I'm terrified. I would never play mid lane. And maybe he feels the opposite way, but I just don't think you should put a dedicated jungler, a jungler who shows that he can handle his chops, when he's jungling against good teams. Like he can handle himself and he can be a consistent player, I think. I don't think that the cost of losing that is worth, the other side.
I think again, I'm inclined to agree. Again, I have a lot of respect for Indigo and Fire Chicken as well as Righteous.
Mm-hmm.
I think again, if Righteous was in jungle and either one of those two top players that they're trying out went to mid, I think that they would have, certainly the potential for more success because they're both very, very solid players. I do think as well, as odd as it sounds, this is the roster changes. Again, your roster change should never be dictated by who you're playing per se, like in regards to we're facing BDE to swap up. But again, when you've got James Moriarty and you're trying to integrate a new mid laner, you're going to potentially see the potential of issues arising there.
Like I like to think that I'm a good player. I like to think I'm a strong jungler. If I saw that I had to swap roles with OJ and go mid into Moriarty, I think I'd cry. I think I would break down into a ball and cry. Like, what do you do? As you're off role playing against the only guy with he has a 29.0 KDA. This guy is running people over when they're mid lane mains. I would be shaking in my boots right now. And I hope Righteous, if you're watching, prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong. Because I think it'd be an awesome story. But I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think maybe Righteous can just play really safe because
play Moby on pod where he just plays Mal's and he sits back under tower.
Yeah, because if you don't let James get super ahead, and you can like help your jungler neutralize their jungler, because that's something that mid lane players that came from jungle are really good at. I've found, like they're really good at like finding the jungler and making their life hell.
Yeah.
It's like if I can't win my lane, I'm gonna like go find you and ruin your life.
But what about a good jungler who just understands that if this guy's gonna sit on our tower and not get CS, he's gonna be items behind, he's gonna be levels behind. We're gonna be levels up and items up. Let's dive him. Like what happens into a team that understands how to play into a team that sits under their tower?
That's New Wave's response. That's New Wave's jungler's responsibility to fix it so that every time James tries to push, they try to punish. Like they try to do something, like get a flash, do literally anything to make James suffer.
Gentlemen, I love you
Yes.
both. I love you both. This is going to be very, very heated. It's very, very exciting. But we do have to cut this short. People have games to play.
We do. I have to get on a game.
So, we're going to end it here. Hopefully you understand how confusing and how ridiculously close a lot of these teams are, given that I could just sit back and enjoy and text my wife while Ratsu and Swifty argue. Like, it's been wonderful.
It wasn't an argument. It was a beautiful discussion.
Tex got to say on Silver Scraps that sometimes I just trigger Leper so that I can have time to think, right? Like,
I just like talking League, you know what I mean?
Me too.
I just
Me too.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, thanks, Feathers, for joining.
This is going to be a
Great
fun
having you, as
season.
always.
Yeah.
Enjoy week 3 of ZGG Gold on both this channel and the other channel in just a few minutes. And with that, have a wonderful Thursday.